And I, like the rest of the planet, would like to talk about obviously Netflix's mega hit show, Baby Reindeer, that has the entire planet buzzing. And particularly, I spoke about my thoughts on the show itself last week, so you can check that out if you want to hear what I thought about the series. But what I want to do is talk about something else that crept up in relation to the show because now it's getting messy. Because last week I made myself a little bit sick in my mouth, if I'm being honest, by watching failed British broadcaster and skid mark on the boxer shorts of humanity, Piers Morgan, interview Fiona Harvey, who's put herself forward as the inspiration for Martha on Baby Reindeer. This kind of content appeals to the same part of my brain that used to watch Jeremy Kyle when I was off sick from work, but I never really thought about the fact that having this well-off TV star yell at disadvantaged people was actually in poor taste until I saw all the documentaries they released and everything that came out in the wake of that show being cancelled. And that's exactly what this entire facade was: poor taste. Because sure, you can't look away, and the memes that are coming out of this are delicious. Literally, it is my entire TikTok feed, and maybe that says more about me than anything else. But this has all the hallmarks of the worst impulses of the British TV and media landscape and how they exploit people around it. You know, that same British media that Piers Morgan was a major part of, hacking the phones of murdered school children and the July bombing victims. Or how about that same British media that can't seem to resist escalating known pedophiles and sex pests to host major TV shows, while the reality TV shows and the stars on them and even the hosts kill themselves because of the awful ratio of tabloid scandal they're exposed to compared to the shit aftercare that these shows give them when they're done chewing them up and spitting them out. Yeah, that British media. And by the way, that same British media has also washed their hands of Piers Morgan and left him as basically a YouTuber at this stage of his career. Nothing wrong with that. Can't judge, but he did have a lot more going on in previous years. So it was no surprise to hear that Harvey, who, let's remember, if she is in fact Martha, the victim of her stalking, created a Netflix series that basically sympathized with her as someone who is struggling with her mental health. Harvey was given a paltry £250 to expose herself to the same, and I hate this phrase, but it's the words that are getting thrown around in this case, internet sleuths, that she says she's trying to get to leave her alone. That's right. She was mined for YouTube clicks and then tossed away with the kind of money that won't even pay a full electricity bill these days for the entire internet to make memes out of her and call her a liar. And look, I'm not standing on the moral high ground here. I watched the show. I even watched the sickening follow-up show the next night where Piers Morgan and a bunch of sycophants who, like, when you're a Piers Morgan sycophant, that to me is the lowest of the low. If you're going on his show and saying, you did a great job, buddy, like, that is, like, next level. Like, at one stage, if you'd have done it while he was at least a US talk show host or the Good Morning Britain host, he had a level of prestige, but now he is just a YouTuber and you're brown nosing an already dirty arse. But the next night I watched a show with a bunch of sycophants basically praising him for his groundbreaking journalism of exploiting and exposing a potentially severely mentally ill person. But the reality here is that we know this will all happen. We know that if you air a car crash on TV, people are going to watch it. I just felt sad watching it all, if I'm being honest. Watching Morgan do a kind of gotcha zinger on Harvey when she got confused about why Martha actor Jessica Gunning was speaking in an English accent in an interview, when Piers had to explain that she was an actress and that she came from England and she was putting on the Scottish accent in the show, or when he made her squirm as she had to backtrack saying that she wasn't challenging Netflix or Richard Gadd to release their evidence, and then watching Harvey afterwards post to her Facebook page like Like her and Morgan were best pals when he went on his show the next night and pretty much then called her a liar after buddying up and telling her and getting her in the studio by saying, "We just want you to air your side of the story, love. This is the for you piece. This is how you can get them back just to get the clicks." It's fascinating viewing on one level because of the sensationalism, but it's not fun. It's not ethical, and it shouldn't be classed as entertainment and fed up for our viewing public. Unfortunately, because Morgan doesn't work for anyone but himself anymore, because essentially nobody will have him after he parted ways with his last YouTube channel, he's not held to any kind of standards and practice beyond, "Am I a revolting man?" Which is a standard, by the way, he's shown us time and time again down the years he just doesn't give a fuck about. So it was no surprise that a person who has been posting several times a day since the release of Baby Reindeer, making herself as available as possible for any media coverage whatsoever, ended up with him while broadcasters with anything to lose passed on the easy clicks instead. And Morgan's going to turn around and say that Netflix has things to answer for, and he was giving Harvey an outlet to say her side of the story. And we know, all of us, deep down, if you ask yourself, we know the latter side is absolute bullshit. Pay her enough for more than one therapy session she might need as a result of this if you feel that you want to support her. Do Netflix have a case to answer for here? Maybe they do. There is a lot of cloaks and daggers here from the streamer who are kind of hiding behind them saying they wish to protect identities as a way of not answering questions. They can answer, for example, what their barrier for proof was. Like when they went out and said, "This is a true story." And that is Morgan's bone of contention. They didn't say based on a true story. They didn't say they're inspired by true events or anything like that. They said it is true, which means that everything they say they're claiming is true. So they could have asked if they just accepted what Richard Gadd told them was true, or they have actual proof to do that. And what is the barrier for proof? And they can give general answers if they don't want to give specific answers that might give away the identities of people involved. Or if that wasn't the case, or if those standards weren't met, are they doing internal reviews? Are they going to review their own policy and what they consider barrier for entry? It seems crazy to me that a company with Netflix's resources would let something go to air claiming it's a true story without validating everything first. But if that's the case, why can nobody find any evidence to dispute Harvey's claims that she's never been to prison? And you'd swear that would have come up by now, but it hasn't. And that does ask legitimate questions. But do we absolutely need to get those answers by having a show that basically promises us the real life Martha saying her side of the story? Of course not. That's not going to help things. And it's total bullshit on Morgan's behalf that this was a moral crusade for truth and not just a cheap stunt for clicks. Again, pay her more than 250 quid if this is about truth. The general public, myself included, unfortunately, will watch car crashes if broadcasters decide to screen them. We know this. We continue to watch Jeremy Kyle, even though it was clear that he was abusive towards his vulnerable guests. We continue to watch Love Island after the contestants and even former hosts committed suicide. This morning became appointment viewing amidst the Philip Schofield scandal. Jimmy Savile achieved record ratings on Top of the Pops and Jim Will Fix It. But in the mix of this all, are real people, real victims in the real world that broadcasters like Morgan directly profit off when there's scandal relating to these shows at a whopping margin if they're only paying £250 to the people who will get them these millions of clicks. And I'm not saying here that I believe Harvey or everything she's saying, but what I do believe is Richard Gadd's sympathetic view of her. She does seem, in the interview, like a lost soul with issues that has sometimes trouble with contextualizing reality. If she hasn't served time, we can find out answers why it was claimed that she did elsewhere. And if she has, then she's paid for her sins and doesn't need to be held up in the court of public opinion to mock and meme her to death. So let's do what she's asking, even if her actions clearly contradict this, because she may not be able to contextualize the impact that her actions may have. And let's just, for once, leave Fiona Harvey alone. Let her live and do not abuse this person anymore, because I don't want another. Well, Piers Morgan probably has bodies on blood on his hand and bodies that he's responsible for. I don't want to feel like I'm a part of that. So let's leave Fiona alone once and for all.